Hey everyone, and welcome to part 2 where we are going from the top of New Zealand's North Island to the bottom of New Zealand's South Island. And we're doing that as a wheelchair user and my wife. So in part 1 we enjoyed the majesty of the Northland, but we are going further down through the North Island, starting in Auckland and going right the way down to Wellington. But there's a lot to see on the way too, so let's get into this thanks to Freedom Mobility. Coming back down, we go back past Auckland. At this point I picked up my tri-ride and we're heading through Auckland and we're heading all the way down to Hamilton, which was our another destination. We did stop in Auckland for the night, but we're heading down through to Rotorua, but we're going to go via the Hamilton Botanical Gardens, and this was another unexpected thing. And as you can see here, I got my tri-rod on, which is making life a lot easier, a lot more relaxing. But yeah, this was something we just stumbled across. It's just a halfway point, and what a place to stop at. It was really cool. It had lots of themed gardens, which was excellent. This is the Japanese themed one, which was a particular interest to me, with loving and understanding about the ancient Japanese culture, which was very cool, very peaceful and zen. And then we had the Chinese gardens. They even had an old English one, Italian themed, and many other ones. And it was very cool to stumble across this, although I'm sure many people already know about this. But yeah, it was very cool, like halfway spot to have some lunch, have a walk around and break up the long drive that we had that day. But yes, very nice indeed. And the other great thing, as you can see here, it was very accessible for myself. Lots of pathways that were designed for wheelchair users, that you could get around and see this beautiful place in all of its glory. And then we were on to our next stop. As I said, Hamilton was the stopping point off to Rotorua, and this was a really unique experience for us. The first thing you notice about Rotorua is the smell when you're coming into town. It very much smells like eggs because this is a natural geothermal area, so lots of sulfur in the air. And you can see Alice here enjoying a little bit of the natural foot spas, and also you can see the smokiness in the area, which is very cool. Going around the park here, which is a free park in the middle of town, you can go around and just have a look at all of the geothermal activity that's happening. Obviously you can't get in these pools because of the heat, probably is a bit too much, and the chemicals as well, but you can see the steam coming off. And this was not even the half. I don't feel like the camera really shows what it was like to go through that steam with the smell, the heat, and the lack of vision, because all you can see is that. But we got ourselves some Domino's, not sponsored by the way, and we sat at the edge of the lake and enjoyed that for the evening. But we're there for a couple of days in Rotorua, and we stayed in a pretty awesome little hostel, and it meant that we had access to the rest of the town, which is what we did the next day. Had a little wander around. Here's the lake with a beautiful flat path to go all the way around that's been made out of wood, which makes life a lot easier for me, and it means that we can enjoy it a lot more, which is very nice. It's very good that for a extremely hilly country there is a lot to do as a wheelchair user. And we thought we'd take the opportunity to go up a little bit further. So on the way we had a look at the stuff, but we got on the skyline here on and going up to the top of the mountain here, so we can look down upon the whole of Rotorua. And it's around an old volcanic lake, and it's just very cool just seeing all this geothermal stuff in the area, but also being able to see the area from up high is really cool as well. And that is one big old volcano. And if you're a bit more adventurous, you can hop on one of these. And you may know New Zealand is known for its excitement and its thrills as well as its natural beauty, so there's a lot to do there. But for me, it was just more about the chilled experience of just viewing this extremely beautiful vista, and then going into some geothermal spas, which by the way wasn't accessible, but there happened to be a lot of very helpful people there who helped me into the spa so we could enjoy the geothermal spa. Then back on the road again a couple of days later, and we were going down to Okanoon, I think that's how you say it. Maybe I'm probably wrong on all of these pronunciations, and I'm sure somebody will tell me. But this was a lovely drive, a little bit more overcast this day, and New Zealand showing us its variation in its weather. But we did go past something that I really wanted to see, which was at the Tongariro. Again, probably wrong, but that right there, for the Lord of the Rings fans, is Mount Doom. And to be able to get that close to Mount Doom was pretty cool. And little Fern here managed to do all the off-road trails absolutely fine. Not particularly off-road, but it meant that we could see right there again, which is Mount Doom for those Lord of the Rings fan, and that was very cool indeed. Did try to go a few other Lord of the Rings things along the way, but some of them weren't as accessible, but it was still beautiful to get out the car at points. And we headed our way to Oakune. I don't know what I'm saying with the words, but we stayed at another hostel which had a sauna and a little spa for Alice to enjoy as well in the evening. And the next day this was just another halfway stopping point, but it really surprised us how peaceful it was and how much they liked their vegetables. There was a carrot themed park, which was quite interesting, but it turned out that there's quite a lot of farming going on in the area, and the farmers had paid for the park. Then we were heading down to Masterton. So this is probably not where most people would go, and that reason is that we were going to see a friend of a friend that I had met on the internet. We went to stay at their place, and it was just a very nice, peaceful couple of days, relaxing and just chatting to our friend. But the drive there was particularly nice, and as you can see, the weather had just held out absolutely beautiful for us as well. In fact, the whole time we were in New Zealand, we were very, very lucky. It only rained a couple of days, especially for New Zealand being known for that kind of switching and changing weather, but it was very good, and it meant that when we got to vistas like this and viewpoints, it just made it so much better because it was so clear and we could see for miles and miles. And this is where we were staying at Masterton, having a look and making some friends with some various animals, whether that's dogs, as you can see, sheep here, me trying to herd them up, and some horses as well. But yeah, these sheep were being particularly difficult to wrangle up. But Masterton itself was a very beautiful little town as well. Really nice walk around the park. But we stayed there for a couple of days, and then we're heading down to the capital of New Zealand, which is Wellington, which is the home to its government and the workshops for the Lord of the Rings films. But on the way, we stumbled across where they filmed some more Lord of the Rings, which was in Rivendell, and saw where the elves lived essentially, which was quite cool to see out where they filmed these locations. And as you looked at it, you can sort of start to picture where the buildings were, and you could also visit where the films were set. Not much is there from that anymore, it's just some bits and pieces, and there's a little archway here which was actually built after the films to commemorate the area, not part of the movie set itself. But it's quite cool to see where like this historic trilogy of movies was set, and you know, it's a big draw for people to come to New Zealand to see this stuff. And as a fan of the movies myself, it's very cool to see this stuff indeed. But as I said, we were on our way to Wellington, and there's Fern again. And this was our last stop with Fern 1 in Wellington, and we had a really beautiful couple of days just exploring Wellington. The weather was really good again, and we kind of got a little bit more of the history of the area, and especially with the Lord of the Rings workshop. I promise this video isn't just all Lord of the Rings, so, but this particular area is where a lot of its films. This is where the studios are, where they make all of the costumes and weapons, and all of the CGI stuff is all made at this place. And we went to the Wetter Cave, which is where you can go and have a look at lots of the stuff, and you can have a tour around, but we just decided to go to the little shop and the mini museum they've got there, and that was well worth the little adventure, where you could see lots of the stuff from that movie, from lots of other movies they've done, like King Kong and District 9 and lots of other stuff as well. So that was pretty cool to see a bit of movie history and New Zealand's impact on the movie industry as well. It's a lot more significant than you realise, how much has happened in this small country of not a lot of people. And there we made some friends outside as well, so even if you're not interested in going inside, there is some scary creatures, including that terrifying one along the side. But yeah, Wellington itself as well is very beautiful, like every part of New Zealand. It's got big beautiful lakes, it's got mountains, it's got rivers, waterfalls, everything that you could ever want from natural beauty it's got here, which is really nice to see. And that's a yellow fern. That wasn't ours, we still had a blue one. There she is, helping us around this part of Wellington, which was very beautiful. And we also stopped off at the National Museum, which we got suggested by a friend, and it really blew us away about how good it was. First of all, it's a completely free museum, which is great to see, and it had some indoor parts, it had some outdoor parts, and it really surprised us about how good it was. It had a very good stuff about New Zealand and the war that we had here, with some amazing like statues, like 3 times, 4 times bigger than a regular human size, like showing different various scenarios in the war and having stories around it. And then it had stuff about like Maori culture and all sorts of other stuff too, and it was really awesome to see the variation in New Zealand's history and its rich history as well, despite it being a very new country indeed. But yeah, Wellington definitely worth the visit and a pretty awesome place to come on our adventures. But that was our last stop on the North Island, and we were getting ready to visit the South Island. We were going to have to take a flight though, so we got on the plane and headed down to Christchurch. But before we did that, as you can see here, we're on a little train thing. I don't really know what it's called this, but it's basically like this old school Wellington like cable car train that took you up the side, so you could go up to the top and view out over the whole city. And it's a very beautiful city. There's a lot of greenery there, there's a lot of things to see. It's a very windy place, but it was very, very beautiful indeed. And at the top of this viewpoint, we got a nice surprise. There was a botanical garden, and there was also a observatory, which was actually really surprisingly good for how small it was, and it had a lot of stuff. And if you're coming here with kids, highly recommend this, because there was lots of stuff, and if you've got big kids like Alice then they will enjoy it too. There you go, it's a cable car, it says it on the thing. I should know that by now. Cool. So yeah, really cool to get that little bit of history, but also then get the experience of seeing the city, seeing the botanical gardens, and yeah, just appreciating what this town has to offer. But yeah, there we are, saying goodbye to Fern number 1 at the airport, where there's a few more surprises, with some dragon and some eagles as well, courtesy of the Lord of the Rings. You can definitely feel the influence. So that's it for part 2 of our amazing journey, and we have completed the North Island, and what a journey we have had so far. But we are only halfway through it, and we have got another 2 videos to go in parts 3 and parts 4, where we are going down onto the South Island, and we're going to go from Christchurch all the way down to Queenstown and back up again. Join me for part 3.